Well, good morning again. Well, I've been thinking about sharing a story with you. Something that began about 12 years ago, back in 1998. At the time, I was living in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. I had moved over from Halifax, which is the Twin City. Dartmouth and Halifax are considered the Twin Cities. So I had, after the cities had amalgamated back then, I was thinking, oh, this is probably a good thing. Everything is coming together and it's probably going to be the start of something brand new, hopefully a lot better. But it turned out to be the opposite. And it seemed like no one really liked the whole amalgamation thing that has recently just happened here in Ontario. So back in 1998, when I was living in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, I had been spending time with my son that summer, and I had told him, after I had done some thinking, I had told him that I was going to move down to Yarmouth, Nova Scotia for a while to more or less just get away from the big city, so to speak. I mean, Yarmouth had a population of like 8,000 people. A really small city and not a lot to do. I had found an apartment right next to a golf course, so that was pretty much one of the primary activities of the community was playing golf. And my backyard was literally right into the golf course, and I could just look out my back door and see people walking by playing golf. Well, after living for about 10 months in this apartment, I got a little sick of watching golf and whatnot. My mother had brought me down a TV along with my stepfather, but I had no cable, no phone or anything. I just had a radio that I bought at Canadian Tire, radio CD player. And so that was pretty much my only entertainment. I had one channel on my TV, which was CBC. Well, actually I had two. I had CBC French and English, so I pretty much watched that all day, CBC. So when I wasn't cooking and making meals and stuff like that, I'd be watching various shows like Road to Avonlea and cooking shows and whatever came on, pretty much. I just watched the same channel all day long. It was a little boring at times, but it was a routine, and I got into a routine, So after about 10 months, I decided that I was going to go back to Ontario. So I had planned to take a ferry from Yarmouth over to Bar Harbor, but that ferry got delayed, and I wound up moving into a room for I think it was about 5 weeks, because that's how long the ferry had been delayed. It was, I think, supposed to depart around the end of May, early June, but it didn't. It wasn't until I think around the middle or the later part of June that I finally did take that cat ferry. It was a new ferry from Yarmouth to Bar Harbor. It was a really nice little trip. And when I got to Bar Harbor, well, I didn't have any money really, nothing to speak of, and I didn't have any place to stay. So what I wound up doing was just sort of camping out, more or less, just staying wherever pretty much I could find a place to sleep, which was kind of adventurous at the time. And since I was pretty much off to find myself once again, I took to it as a challenge. And after about 10 days of that, I was a little sick and tired, and was glad when that time came up. And when I had gotten the money, I had bought a bus ticket and went up from Bar Harbor up to Bangor, and then down to Boston, New York, and then finally I had to take the bus over to Chicago. And from Chicago I finally wound up in Windsor. Once I got to Windsor, I was there for about 5 weeks. I was there pretty much for the whole month of July and the first week of August. Things didn't work out too well in Windsor. I couldn't really get established down there, even though I had found a job in less than a week. It was only part-time, and I really couldn't make enough money with the part-time job in order to support myself, so I wound up quitting. And then I decided that I would try to get a little closer to Toronto, and decided to move up here to Hamilton, which I did in early August. I think it was August the 8th of 1999 it was. August 1999. I arrived here in Hamilton. And again, for about 5 days I had no place to stay. And after roughing it for about 5 days, I finally found a room. And for about 17 months, I lived in that little room until I found this apartment. Anyway, since then, I've been more or less doing a lot better this time around in Ontario than previous tries or attempts that I have tried in the past. Back in the late 80s and the early 90s. And whatnot, I had tried to live in Toronto and really, lasted a couple of years. Things didn't work out and wound up going back to the Maritimes. So I got a little tired of that, and once I figured out that this would be my last trip, I thought, and so far it's worked out to be pretty much. This is the longest I've lasted here. I've been here now for 11 years, and I'm pretty much still going more or less strong. And so, I guess in a nutshell, this time around I finally made it. So that's my story. I thought I'd share that with you, and I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, this is Daryllorette wishing you a good day.